Yo guys, so it's Jane here and I'm gonna do a short video on some of the more common aspects that are encountered by us here in the team, and I'm using a AVG model that I chose particularly because it has some of the most common hardships that we encounter overall. And this Lychee change from Chi2Box has presented us with a lot of new opportunities in terms of support work, but also some different changes in approach that we have to do. And that's where I'm going to aim and try to answer some of those doubts. Okay, so let's begin from bottom to top, and just the first problems that we are encountering right now with Lychee is above all problems with anchorage. So we were using our heavies. As you can see, we had this setting at 0.35 tips, and this is a really good model to show this, because you will have here a part of the model that will never be seen. This probably will fit into a base like this. So, and don't be as fearful of damaging the model with Lychee, because the way that the smart tips work, they leave less of a mark even with increased area on the tip. So what I would recommend is on flat surfaces, go a bit overboard and don't leave as much of a distance, and try to increase your density, so use more supports with less distance between them, because they can detach easier. So the second step is increase all of your anchorage on the first layers for 0.45s or above. Don't on Okay, on flat pieces you can go to 0.5s or even 0.6, no problem. On dynamic posed miniatures or sculptures, don't go above 0.45. Just use more density in the number of supports you need, if you can. So this is a particular challenge we have here. This is a rounded part, as you can see. It's not a flat one. So most people will just support on the first part. But the problem we have here, it's besides the risk of detachment over here, and I actually didn't put a support here just to show you. So one thing that we like to do is on rounded parts, you would put support with an increased area on the tip for 5 right here, on the central part of the island, the beginning of the layer. But then what you will want is to just see the ring, and as soon as the ring starts to open in the middle here where I have my mouse cursor right now, when it opens up, usually you want to put a second support right there just to continue to grab that layer, that particular layer, because remember guys, this is going to be one of the initial layers, and the suction to surface area will be the ratio will be thrown off. You will have a lot of suction for not much model yet. So as you can see, you will put one in the center, then on the sides as the ring opens like this, you will put on each side, so it creates kind of an invert, like a cup, so it can support everything. Then you don't need to continue to be crazy on supports. Over here where I'm passing my mouse, you don't have to go crazy in here, because this is at an angle, so you don't actually have to support it anymore, because everything will be built from here, and resin has a good overhang capability. Though you have to think, with our current printers, you will have to put some supports, like here on where the cup starts to go vertical. On the vertical part you don't have much of a problem. But when the cup ends, so I would say in this model it's this line over here, where the cup starts to go vertical, you want to put some supports there as safety, just to stabilize. Doesn't need to be much, it doesn't need to hold much, it's just to stabilize the vertical part of the process. Either that here or here, but as you see on the back part, the cup has a shallower angle, so actually you don't need, and because we know that this part will be more visible, there's no need to damage it. So this is well anchored right now. As you see, I did the same on the other side, and you don't have to just go like this and do a line in the middle. There's no need, because you will, like bases, you will just need to create supports on the edges to grab the frame of the model, and on these overhangs, if you want to be extra careful, they will not be noticeable, so you can just put one there right at the meeting of the overhang. It would print, but as a safety precaution, because we are still trying to figure out how Lychee works in terms of detachment, because of the tips actually conform themselves to the surface. So for them, overhangs and any flat surface, it's really easy for the software to... This is my theory, I'm just talking out of my ass here, but on flat surfaces it will be easier for the software to conform to, so you will have easier detachment and it will be easier than you thought. That's why you have to go heavier sometimes. On rounded edges, the algorithm has more difficulty conforming to those surfaces. That's why you are not seeing as much of detachment on those. So that's for anchorage, guys. This is my initial tip. And I think I'm gonna throw 3 or 4 tips over here of things that I'm going to talk about. So anchorage is the first. The second one is dangly bits. Anything that is mid-air or begins with a sharp point. And as you can see on the beginning of the cloak, you have some spiky bits and some eyes or buttons over here. This is a mind flayer, so a thing that we used to do was to just put the support on the tip on the beginning of the layer as it forms, and then stabilize it so it doesn't have anywhere to go. It only can go up, so it has to print. This is so the dangly bits, which are fragile, the best thing is to put the support on the beginning, then stabilize it from behind in here and from the sides, so it cannot wobble to anywhere and can only go up. There's only one way it can go. So with Lychee, not in this one, but for example on this one, as you can see I had more space. I can also do it on this one if I want. I don't feel there's a need, but one on the beginning of the layer, then one in each side if you can, if you don't just support it on one side, and then one on the back, so it stabilizes everything, can only go up and cannot fail. So in this you can either use the alt supports as branches, as you can see here, but in this instance, because of the lack of space, I would actually I will descend this one, make it a bit more like this, so I can have a point from where to shoot just one needle like this. It doesn't need to be a medium. And this is a good segue into the next topic. Every time you use a thin support, like Lychee allows us to do, please, if you have the space, just go to your base tip and just bump it. What this will do is just increase the base of the tip and create a cone shape, which is super stable and will print 99% of the times. So you don't have those spider webs like this, which are a major cause for failure if you are underexposing or printing too fast. So if you have the space, there's no reason for you not to do this. This just improves printability. And then if you want to be extra safe, you can just Alt D and copy this tip and do it like this. Remember those fan shapes from Cheeto Box? You can also do it like this. This is super stable. This has to print. I could still even go more overboard and just do it like this. And if I didn't have the space, I could just reduce the thickness of the whole thing and stabilize it from the side. So what I would do right now, this is a particular personal option. I cannot actually explain it why my mind thinks this is more stable, but I will try. So this is a really acute angle. This is difficult to print. So everything that I see this when I create a branch, I always try to shallow every angle I can. So in this case, I would just slide this downward, and now you will have a much shallower angle into the model. And now I can play with both gizmos like this. So I will have this. Okay. So this is still a really crazy angle, but then I can work the gizmos. If you are having troubles with the gizmos, guys, just use the arrows and you will be fine. In here I can just create a bridge like this to stabilize it, then go to global and increase the whole thickness of the thing and create a bridge. There's no way that this cannot print. This is totally overboard, but as you can see in Lychee, it's so easy. There's no way you cannot do this. As you can see, this is all the same theory for all dangly bits. You start, you support from the back, then you might support from the side if you think it will wobble, but the support density over here, it will be enough. In here you have a cape, which is exactly the same theory on the anchorage that I showed previously. You support the center, then you do a kind of a fan shape to stabilize the first layer, and it will print from there. So these were the two topics I wanted to talk, and the last one was, let's use Lychee in our favor. So we could just create normal supports like this and create a bunch of them, but then people would have to cut every single one of them. So what we can do is, if we have the space and the angles will not be crazy, you can just do branches from the same tree trunk like this, and you have the added capability of always meeting the perfect angle on each tip. So in here I could just copy this tip and do exactly the same into this one, and now I could just put it like this, and it will be aesthetic, it will be functional, and it will be stable. As you can see, I don't like acute angles, so what I would do was pick up the gizmo and just shallow it a bit. So this is a shallower angle now, it should print. So as you can see, the angles over here were not that crazy, and here I use the fan shape, and these are thin supports. What I did was went to the base tip and increased everything. Try to increase everything on the base tip to at least 0.7 if you have the space for it, because that way it will print. From our experience, every failure that happened with thin supports, it's usually due to spider webbing not printing or just retracting mid-print. So as you could see in here, as I got further and further away from the main tree trunk, I reached a point where I support things. I have the most efficient angle of attack and meeting point over here. The problem is this is getting a bit too acute for my liking, so then if you have the space, once more just brace everything. Just create a connection. It will not be as static, but it will print. It will be just more reliable overall. So segueing into, this is the perfect model, by the way. Like, you have a bit of every challenge that you can think of. Just look at his feet. So these are his nails, and as you can see, I did one, but I started to support on the back, as I did on the dangly bits on the coat. Same thing. Don't be afraid of using mediums on the first layers of anything, especially structural things. Elbows, knees, hands, wrists. As you can see, we'll have a really high cross-sectional area in horizontal speaking terms. So one thing that we used to do in Chitubox would be spreading the load across a fan shape. So we would put one in the center and then create a fan shape all from the center. That was a static, but that had a problem, which was you would not have the perfect meeting angle between the tip and the model, and as it will detach easily, but usually it would rip chunks out of the model or it would damage it because the angle of detachment was not ideal. It was aesthetic, but not ideal. With Lychee, you don't have that to do that compromise. You can always work the gizmo into having the perfect tip to every situation. But now you have an added problem. You can branch and do the fan shape like this, horizontal, but if you don't support it on the last branch, this is going to be pulled out with a lot of force. And if you see this in printing terms, this will fuse right here. So everything will be connected, even if you don't want it. This will be fused. And there's no problem with that. We actually want that. The problem is on the last one, you don't have anything to fuse to, right? So just brace it. This is the best I can show it. It's like this. Hope you guys can see it. In Lychee, we are also trying to do another thing. We are trying to create space for the model to breathe, but we are still wanting shallow angles, so we don't have to really work far away because we know the Lychee tips, they detach easier. So in Chitubox, you would have to either create a tree with those ball joints or really use a regular support that was really far away, which was not ideal, let's face it. But now you can support things like if you were moss. And I like to think of it like we are Spider-Man working from below to the upper parts of the model. So I would look at the model from this angle and just shoot like if I was Spider-Man and just connect. Sometimes it breaks, yes. But I would connect branches like this, then work my... Oh, by the way, every time this happens, don't go into advanced mode and try to jiggle the gizmos. This will be effective, but it will take much longer. So what you can do, it's in classic mode, readjust the support and it will recalculate into a cleaner option. And now you can work with the gizmos and work from here. This is not the best example, I know. This is actually, it's broken in all sorts of ways. But you got my point. You can work from here like Spider-Man, go into here and just work your way like this. Okay, this is too close. This will fuse, like 100% guaranteed. So what you will do is work your gizmo, create a bit of space that you are certain it will print, but you don't want, once again, you don't want acute angles like this. You want to feel like it's an organic type of support that just moves like a snake climbing the model. So if you want, you can just go to the side and angle. You can even copy on the same So because you have the same, you could just, from the same point on the branch, you could replicate the same, so you would have like some symmetry over here. That is a static. That's like symmetry is always a static. So there's no purpose to a static, but we like to prod ourselves with this kind of work. So supporting great art, we are also trying to look as the supports are part of that art. So if you connect all branches to almost the same point in the main tree trunk, you will have the branches looking aesthetically. You don't have to copy them, you just have to make sure that everything is coming out almost from the same place. And then you continue to work your way up like this. So yeah guys, these are some of the tips. So reviewing all that I spoke on this video, you have anchorage. You can go a bit harder on anchorage. Actually it is needed because we are using crazier angles on the rest of the model, so anchorage will be our main stabilization point. It will be where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. On dangly bits, fingers, nails, dangly bits, chains, rope, anything that is pointy, just support the tip and then brace it from behind and the sides if you have the possibility. The other thing is branches. Anytime you don't want acute angles, so brace it the best you can. And every time that the model reaches a certain height, just either select the ones you want. I don't like to hit and select all automatic, then hit bracings. Usually that breaks some of the work I did before, so I don't actually like to use it. I select the ones I want to brace, then I brace individually. That, or I actually do it manually by myself, because that way I have more control. So I hope this was helpful, and if you guys have any other question that you want me to show, we are more than glad to help you out. And yeah,